Do you have a brilliant startup idea but are stuck in the launching phase? Are you feeling overwhelmed by funding, marketing, or just where to start? Don't let your startup idea stay grounded. Visit our website at eapla.com to schedule a Blue Couch meeting and launch your startup journey today.
Welcome back to On the Cusp. Matt, what season are we on now?
It's like 7 or 8. I don't know.
I don't know.
I know we're in our third different studio in the last month.
Well, that's a good thing. Now, I got my co-host, Matt Snyder, back with me, and this is really an exciting one because we've been going for about 30 minutes now. We've got Mark Crawford from the Shreveport Airport here with us, and he's one of the gurus on culture in here. Matt wanted you in
Mark,
here. You know,
if we're going to talk about what's happening in Shreveport, let's talk to Mark Crawford.
Yeah, but let's start with the airport. Yes.
All right, let's go.
Mark, what's the deal with the parking there, man?
What are you talking about?
I can't find a place to park.
Well, that's a good problem to have, and we are certainly very well aware of that. We kind of started having issues with that back in 2018, 2019, so we had a great plan of a giant parking lot expansion that went out for bid in February of 2020. And then COVID happened, and so we pulled everything back. And so thankfully, in November of last year, we started a 300-spot expansion of the long-term lot. So that should be ready, hopefully mid to late summer. So there'll be 300 more spots available there in the lot. And we are already designing our next parking lot expansion in a different area of the airport property.
Man, I flew out probably like in summer or something. I don't know what it was, but not long ago. And we flew out normal, parked in my spot I like, I have my area I like to park in, got my spot, we flew out. We came back, and I was going to the car, and there's cars everywhere. And I was like, we're cooking, baby, let's go. I mean, that's
really and truly, I mean, I love it. I really do like the fact that I have to work to find a parking spot because that sends a clear signal to me that, hey, that airport's getting used.
Absolutely. Last year we did 715,000 passengers, which was the highest number of passengers in 24 years. So that's a great thing.
Yeah, the airport is moving such in the right direction. We can go so many directions.
Yeah.
But I want to start here.
Okay.
When we were younger, even young like business people, it was so popular to hear people driving to Dallas, and that was kind of a part of traveling out of Shreveport in a lot of ways. Like, oh yeah, I looked at it, but man, it's gonna save me $300 a ticket. I look every time I book, which 3 or 4 times a year. It's never saves very much at all.
So when I started 14 years ago, which it's crazy to think I've been there 14 years, but when I started 14 years ago, many, many, many times, it was hundreds and hundreds of dollars cheaper per ticket. Same thing in Monroe and Alexandria. It was a lot of times cheaper to go to those airports. And now that's thankfully not the case for us. Pricing is kind of more in line, especially with Monroe, Alexandria, Longview. Those, it's more in line with Shreveport, so it doesn't make sense to drive to another airport. But even Dallas now too, you're not, unless you're taking a family of 10 or 8, you're not saving a lot of money per ticket.
Right. And by the time you pay the drive there, pay the parking, okay, and then you get there, you're tired, you're coming back, you're tired, you got to drive here. Why not fly?
Getting home and being home.
Right. Absolutely. Plus, for sure. All the renovations, Dr. George and I fly out of the Shreveport Airport quite a bit, and just in the last year, you guys have done a lot.
Let's talk about that, because that's exciting. Because I mean, I think I have not been there. I'm going in 2 weeks, and I'm so excited. But one of the things, you're waiting on that flight, you get there early, and that little coffee stand, and I mean, it was brutal compared to
now. Yes. So thankfully, we have a director that's been there about 2.5 years, Larry Blackwell, who's from Bossier City, worked at the airport 20 years ago. Managed a couple of airports all over the country. He has come back home to Shreveport, and he saw what it was like 20 and 25 years ago. We were at an event last night, and he talked about how he's been flying out of that airport since he was 4, and so that was in the 70s. So he knows what it was like when it was brand new. He knows what it was like when he came back after being gone for 20 years, and he's like, we've got to make it better. And so thankfully, that's what we've been able to do over the last year and a half, is continue to improve the customer experience. So we have all new seating in all the public spaces, which is probably when you go, that'll be probably the first thing you notice. It's not the ripped up seating from 1971. That's not a joke. It really was. A lot of it was from 1971 when the building opened.
It looked out of like a movie about like Pan Am or something.
Yes. was literally, some of it was from 1971. But what's more exciting, the seating is great. All of it has power, which is great. You know, a lot of people like to charge their devices and things like that. What's more exciting is we have 6 new restaurant options and a new retail store.
And they have Mark Crawford's signature written all
signature
over
of approval,
baby.
yes, absolutely.
Because a redo of the food and beverage in the airport
was much needed.
I would think it's much needed, and we're going to get a company like an Aramark, a big knife, and it's going to get better, but it's going to be very corporate. That's not what happened.
Right. So we put it out for bid. Tailwind Concessions, who was our operator before, and if you'd been there before, you know it was kind of like a basic burger or a basic salad, basic chicken fingers. And we were like, we don't want that anymore. The trend in a lot of airport situations now is going local. And so when we've done surveys in the past, Mexican food was always the #1 requested food type in the airport. So I went to literally every Mexican restaurant brand in town and said, hey, do you want to be in the airport? And so a lot of them weren't sure. And so I knew Tony and Maria from Taco Mania just from going there so often. And so I reached out to them, kind of explained it, and they were like, okay, we think we want to try this. And so Taco Mania has been open since July of last year. It does really, really well. So it's a lot of the classic dishes. Not everything, their menu is very extensive.
Yeah,
but,
crazy.
There's probably 20 different dining options from Taco Mania, including breakfast things, which they never had before.
Yeah, never had a breakfast.
Which is great. And then with Taco Mania is Coffee Bean and Tea Leaf. So if you're not familiar with that brand, it's like a Starbucks.
Right.
All the fancy coffee drinks, the regular, black coffee, any kind of coffee drink you want, with some grab and go sandwich options
Not
as
that
well.
old coffee they used to have. It was kind of mop water.
No, not that. And I don't drink coffee, but I heard stories. Yes. So no, it's all we have heard of all the things we've done. We hear more positive feedback about the coffee. Again, I don't drink coffee, so that's not as exciting to me as the Taco Mania. But the trash cans near the gate areas, they are always full of coffee cups. And when
That's
people
a good
leave,
thing.
when people leave cups behind, it's always Coffee Bean and Tea Leaf coffee cups.
Let's talk about the service that the airlines that are actually flying into Shreveport, because I think I've flown them all. Okay. So you've got Delta, you've got American, you've got United, and you've got Allegiant.
Yes.
Now, you got a new one starting pretty quick.
So Allegiant does Vegas year-round. They do Destin and Orlando in the summer. And also this summer, brand new, we've never had nonstop service there to Nashville. So Nashville starts May 22nd. I was looking up fares last week. Some days the fares start at $43 one way. I mean, you couldn't drive it.
That's such a great route because Nashville is a spot that it's not worth to fly if you have to connect.
No, right.
Yeah,
it's like I drove it not long ago. It's like 7.5 hours. So if you have to connect.
My rule, if it's less than 5, I will drive.
Yeah.
Right.
Is my rule. Okay. So there's no direct flight to New Orleans. So when I have to go to New Orleans, I just drive.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's just outside the window. Okay. For Nashville.
And it's not far enough that connecting makes sense.
That's right.
Like,
for sure.
So this is going to be big, and what a fun weekend.
Oh, absolutely. Flights are on Sundays and Thursdays, so you can leave Thursday, come back Sunday.
I love that.
Sunday through Thursday, any combination of those days.
Now, what are
you
the
can go.
Vegas days?
They're Mondays and Fridays.
They're Mondays and Fridays.
Yes.
Okay. Well, good. Well, let's talk about. I spend a lot of time flying back and forth to Washington, D.C. for the BRF. When are we getting a direct to DC flight? We got Air Force Global Strike Command.
We do.
4-star headquarters right there. They're constantly traveling.
They got their own airplanes.
Well, they do. They do. It doesn't work that way. When are we going to get a direct to DC?
That's a great question. I wish I could give you a specific time or date, but we don't. We are always asking all of our current airline partners, airlines we don't have in Shreveport yet and currently, about nonstop service to multiple destinations, certainly including Washington, D.C. It's the second busiest route that's not served by nonstop. So Los Angeles, about 40,000 people a year go to Los Angeles. 35,000 go to D.C., the D.C. area every year.
Route that's not talked about because it's not like sexy, nobody's going there to stay, but it's been so good for Shreveport is that Charlotte flight.
Absolutely.
That Charlotte
Charlotte connecting, it
And that's
really
probably how you get to
serves
DC.
DC.
Generally how I go.
That's a good route.
Yes.
Like
it is.
people never talk about it, but that route is way underappreciated.
Let's talk about, there's a lot going on in the FAA right now, but a lot of people don't realize that Shreveport is 24/7.
So we are one of 2 airports in Louisiana that has a 24/7 control tower. So there are certain rules that the controllers have to follow, and so there's typically always 2 people, and at least 2 people in the tower, just because there's someone there manning the tower, and then also someone there training. So sometimes there's 3 or 4 people in there, and so we have, like I said, one of the only 2. New Orleans is the other one. So there's always training going on there. So we're
So
thankful.
even regardless of how delayed you are, you're still going to be able to get into Shreveport if they can fly.
Absolutely, yes, for sure. It won't be because
a lot
the
of people
tower's
don't
closed.
realize
Right.
it's not because the tower's closed.
I'll tell you what's really interesting, and this has been a recent thing. So Cargill, where the kids play soccer, is kind of right behind the airport.
Yes.
And so we've spent a lot of times at practices and games, and even Little League's been playing their games out there, so I've been out there a lot. It is impressive, if you're out there for an hour or 2 on a Saturday, how many airplanes are coming in and out of Shreveport. Like, it's more than people think.
So we have 21 commercial flights a day, or 22 if it's an Allegiant day, and then general aviation flights come in all the time. I mean, all the time. So we have, private planes coming in. One thing that happens a lot, and that you'll see larger planes and usually older, noisier planes. Mexican cargo operators come into our
I did
airport.
not know that. I did not know that.
So they're
and the customs.
So they used to fly the old 727s with 3 engines that were really loud. You always heard them when they were flying in. They thankfully are merging to newer aircraft, but are still kind of noisy sometimes. But they come in sometimes 4 and 5 and 6 times a day, just because we have customs on site. We're actually...
But that's really good for us.
No, it's
People
great.
should be happy. I mean, every time a plane lands there and takes off there, you're generating revenue for the airport, which enables you to actually grow.
Right, for sure. We are actually in the very early stages of planning and about to construct a federal inspection station, which is an FAS is the abbreviation, and that is to have international passenger flights. So we're hopeful that'll happen in the next 2 or 3 years. Probably to Cancun would be the first
that
thing.
would be a good one.
It's kind of the chicken and the egg. The airlines won't talk to you about offering international service until you have the facility to process the passengers. So once we have the facility ready, that's when we can really start talking actual opportunities. We mention it every time we get a chance to talk to the airlines that, hey, I know you just go to Dallas and Charlotte, but you should also go to Cancun with American. So we're always talking with airlines about that facility should be ready in the next 2 or 3 years, if not sooner.
That is major.
Yes,
for
that would be a
us
huge
right
deal.
there. I mean, yeah.
Okay, so 2 things that we've talked about a lot that I always love to talk about. The first one, we can't let you come and not tell some crazy airport stories. Like, I love your stories about random crazy things that have flown into the Shreveport Airport that no one would ever think about.
Well, this was kind of funny.
One.
Speaking of customs, and I have 2. I've been there 14 years, so probably my first time where there was an international flight coming in that we knew customs was going to have to. It was a charter flight. Customs was going to have to screen on the commercial ramp over there. It was a Southwest plane, which everyone always wants Southwest in Shreveport. We would love Southwest there. But the Southwest plane came in, and it was the cast of Disney on Ice coming in from their Canadian show. The news was calling, why is Southwest here? And so when I said it's an international flight with customs, then people didn't know we had customs. But they screened the cast of Disney on Ice on the ramp in Shreveport as they were getting off the plane. So that was random stuff like that happens, kind of all the time. The other thing is, the casinos bring in celebrities all the time, and most of them do not travel on some of them do, but most of them do not travel on private planes. And so Diana Ross was here probably 6 or 8 years ago, and so we always greet them at the gate when they come in, and they always, I know in bigger airports they're probably paparazzi and all that, and I'm like, in Shreveport it's not going to happen, but they still want you to meet. So we escorted her to her limo, and then we met her when she was flying out, and so she had requested a private room with no access to anybody, and so she kind of was all made up like Diana Ross when she came in. When she flew out, you would have never known it was her. She didn't have on all of her makeup and her costume and her outfit and all that, and so we set up a private room for her to wait in until it was time for her to fly out. So and she was super nice. She was chatted or whatever, but that was
so how often do you see a celebrity coming through the Shreveport Airport?
Let me tell you who came through all the time after he came back from Las Vegas was O.J. Simpson. He came through he came through 4 or 5 times a year.
Yeah,
and was talking to everybody and was all that. So he was there. So when they were filming the movies here, it was a lot more often. Gerard Butler flew commercial, and so he would talk with the people. When they were filming here. So it was not quite as often now, but we certainly have throughout the years for sure.
Do you see a big spike for the Independence Bowl?
It depends on where the teams are coming from. So this year we did not. We only had one charter flight associated with that. But when it's 2 teams that are far away, sometimes we have 5 or 6 charter flights that have 150 people, 160 people.
So you do see an
we do when they're further away.
So let's talk about that route. Because we're always sensitive to that, because you fly into Shreveport, you get this positive impression of Shreveport when you come in to the airport, because you come right off that plane, you're right there at baggage claim, you got your bags, your car is right there, and you're rolling.
Right.
Okay? You're not waiting for anything.
A shuttle or anything like that, absolutely.
That route coming out, okay, not your responsibility.
On Monkhouse, yes.
Yes,
right.
Monkhouse, okay.
You don't go that way, Dave. Wrong way.
Yeah, I shouldn't go that way.
Wrong way, Dave. That's the wrong way. The way I go, you would think Shreveport was on fire. It's perfect. You got to come the backside. I think we should. This is going to get edited. But I think we should block Monkhouse. Okay. Make them go around 3132.
Because there was a couple of years ago, there was a reporter that flew into Shreveport.
Oh yeah,
you remember this one? And all you saw, it was really a good game. Okay, but the only thing he wrote about was how horrible it was between the airport all the way to the Independence Bowl. And he got back in his rental car at the end of the Independence Bowl, drove back to the airport. So he didn't know anything about Shreveport.
Let me follow this up and do some work on this. So this would be 15, 16 years ago when I was working for my grandfather right out of college in town. He owned a casino, a truck stop casino on Monkhouse Drive. It's called Airport Casino. And part of my job was to handle anything that happened at Airport Casino. It was horrible. It was horrible. The stories I could tell you, from drug addicts eating the heads of match tips to violence to everything, was horrible. That casino was sold to one of my friends, Jonathan Scoggins, and Avis Rental Cars family. Monkhouse has improved a whole lot.
Well, I think it has too. That's why I wanted to go down this path.
Jonathan and I were talking just the other day just about his basic business, and I said, Scoggin, I've not seen very many of your funny posts, because Scoggin would always send me pictures or post guns and drugs that were left in his cars. And I was like, man, where's the action? What you been finding lately? And he's like, Matt, it's dried up. We're not finding anything.
It is good. It is good.
And I think people have started paying attention, and the airport getting so much better has bled out into that community a little bit.
We hope so, for sure.
And
it's improving.
I always have Jamie pick me up, and she goes to the cell phone lot. We didn't have a cell phone lot years ago. Now you got a cell phone lot. She goes straight to the cell phone lot. I'm standing on the curb. Boom.
Oh, it's so easy.
It is so
absolutely.
easy. And I love flying out of Shreveport because I'm not there 2 hours early.
No.
Okay. And the line moves pretty fast.
I'm going 2 hours early this time, baby. I got a lot to eat. I got to have some beers and a great raft. I got things to do at the Shreveport Airport now.
Yeah.
Can't wait.
Yeah.
So, Mark, this is, there's a lot of positive things that are going on at the airport. The traffic is up. It's only looking better for Shreveport.
Yeah.
And how do we do a better job? We, the people of Shreveport, do a better job to promote the airport.
Continue to use the airport. The analogy I like to use is, think of the Shreveport Regional Airport as a small business. You want to support local business. You want to support our small business. We generate all of our own funds. We do not get any tax dollars from the city. In fact, it's against city charter and federal regulations for us to take city funds. So we are completely self-generated. So the more people that use the airport, the more money that comes in, the bigger we can get. When the airlines see that all their flights are full, which they pretty much are many, many times now, that's why we have, instead of 2 flights a day to Charlotte, now 3 flights a day.
Yeah.
They've added a 5th flight to Houston each day. In June, they add a 6th flight to Houston.
I think that's the key. I think we've got to get this message out.
That's such a simple message.
Yes.
And people, It's like Shreveport is finally coming around to understanding more of we have to take care of ourselves.
That's right.
And
Yes.
talk positive about ourselves.
Right.
People used to slam the Shreveport
Well,
Airport.
the good
all
thing
the
is you're
time.
not going to have a problem finding a parking spot. I really and
Yes.
truly, I want everybody to have a problem. I want
It's a
that
good problem to have,
350.
for sure.
I want that 350 full every time I go.
Airports are airports. Every airport in the country that you end up in, it's a situation. You're traveling. Everybody's trying to go. The Shreveport Airport is winning right now. It's an easy airport to operate
Absolutely.
out of. It's an easy place to go. So you're not saving much money going and driving.
Dallas, yeah.
Support it.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Don't complain about the flights we have or any of that if you're
and
not
the problems
supporting
that
it.
the airline industry problems, okay, you didn't create it.
No, right.
And they're probably more minimal in an airport like Shreveport than they are out of the massive
Right.
airports.
Right.
More
Yeah.
of my travel problems have occurred in the big airports.
Once you get
So-
to Dallas or
Yeah.
Houston, yeah.
So, Mark, we're hitting our time here, and this has been really good. And what do you want to say to us about the airport?
You know, we think the airport's great. We know the airport's great. We have a lot of new offerings, and we're thankful that people, like y'all mentioned, are starting to realize, it's not a bad thing to fly out of Shreveport. And so, like with Nashville, we have to make sure the flights to Nashville are full this summer, because if they're not going to continue to offer that flight. But when they see that Nashville worked, they are certainly more likely to try other destinations as well. One of the big things we're asking for now from Allegiant is year-round Orlando service. We know year-round Orlando service will work. And so when they see that Nashville works, they're more likely to try a new route like that. So just continue to support the local airport because we want to have flights to even more destinations all over the country.
Right.
And the only way to make that happen is to continue to use the service we have now.
All right, perfect. Thank you for coming.
Absolutely, yes. Thanks for having us.
Awesome.
Yes.
All right.
Enjoy the podcast? We would love your feedback about today's show and who you think should be our next guest. Send us an email at info@eapla.com. Also, be sure to share the show and leave a comment on our social media post.